Imagine Bob. He's a father of 2 and a loving husband who is trying to improve his life. He likes black tea and his favorite fragrance is Bulgarian. What do you think is the worst thing that can happen to Bob? What is the most painful torture someone can be put through? For starters, let's take his arms and legs, shorten them, and stitch them back on, but in each other's place. Then, let's surgically move his jaw further forward and change the shape of his ears. Lastly, we will implant hair all over his body and put him in his new home and we're done. Bob can still think. He can remember who he used to be. But is he still human, living like this? Cruel, wasn't it? This is loss of humanity, the most disturbing form of horror. In this video, we're going to talk about 6 pieces of media that use loss of humanity, starting from the least disturbing and ending with the most. What makes loss of humanity so effective is that it's one step even worse than what we see as the worst thing that can happen to a person, which is death. This subgenre of horror is extremely rare, because to make one, you really have to be sick in the head. It is not something a sane individual can come up with, so when a normal person sees it, it disturbs their psyche to no end. So I need to warn you now that the things we are going to talk about in this video are really dark. There are also spoilers, so be warned. Here are my criteria for what counts as loss of humanity in horror. It has to be forced on the character. It should result in physical alterations, basically body horror. The subject should not be able to easily go back to who they were. Lastly, the subject should not be able to end their own suffering. Before we begin, let me give you some honorable mentions that didn't make the list for one reason or another. Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, Season 4 Episode 1 of Black Mirror, Full Metal Alchemist, The Human Centipede. Now, let's not waste any more time and get right into it, starting with the least disturbing, which is the 2014 movie Tusk is a dark comedy with some horror aspects. The combination of comedy and horror is not anything new, but what differentiates Tusk from the others is that it takes an extremely disturbing and unexpected turn when it comes to its horror. A podcaster goes to an old man's house to interview him about his crazy life. For his podcast called The Nuts, that's not important, while in the old man's house, he gets drugged and amputated. That was only the beginning of his transformation. Then his body is modified to better fit the role of a walrus. A human walrus. There is a very fine line between comedy and horror, and this movie walks on that line masterfully. The idea of a man being turned into a walrus is funny, it's comedy. But when you think about how something like that could be done, you start to realize how horrifying it actually is. It's bringing cartoon physics into the real world. Imagine how terrifying Tom and Jerry would be in real life. That's what Tusk is. Just imagine having all of your rights taken away from you like that. What keeps this movie from reaching its full horror potential is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. But that's also what I like about it. It's a stupid movie and it knows it. It doesn't take anything away from how disturbing it is though. But still, when it comes to loss of humanity, this is only the beginning. Look at all these cute characters. Look how beautiful the art is. You know what else has cute characters? Happy reference. This is the Abyss, and it holds many mysteries. For example, how deep is it? Why can't some of the creatures that live there only be found there? Where did the weird objects and technologies found in the Abyss come from? There are some reasons why these mysteries have not been solved yet. The dangerous environment of the Abyss, and the creatures that want to kill you. But the main reason why it's still so unknown is the curse of the Abyss. You can go down, but if you do, you can no longer come back up. At least not if you go past the 6th layer. If you try to ascend from the 1st layer to the surface, the symptoms will be light dizziness and nausea. From the 2nd layer to the 1st, heavy nausea, headache, and numbness of limbs. From the 4th layer to the 3rd, intense pain throughout the body, and bleeding from every orifice. And most importantly for this video, the symptoms for ascending from the 6th layer of the Abyss to the layer above are loss of humanity, and if you're lucky, death. This manga starts off very cute. The characters are funny and full of childish joy. You start reading it and very quickly, you find a connection with the characters, especially the main character Riko. She and her friend Drake decide to go into the Abyss. So far the story has been very fun and whimsical. You think you know where the story is going. You're 3 volumes into the 10+ volume manga, and Riko and Drake are fighting against one of the dangerous monsters in the Abyss. But Drake, being the awesome kid he is pushing the monster back, when out of nowhere, that monster is venomous. Having no other way, Drake picks Riko up and escapes. but they are in the 4th layer of the abyss. So now, Riko is in excruciating pain and is bleeding from every orifice. The cute character you want nothing but happiness for is dying, and her friend has to cut her soul and hand to stop the poison from reaching the rest of her body. This is when you realize this manga is not what you expected. It was giving you a false sense of security. I'm not going to talk about the loss of humanity aspect of this manga, because it's a huge spoiler and I want you to feel the pain I felt the first time I read it. Made in Abyss is really immersive. It gives you extra information between chapters, which makes it feel all the more alive. It also makes you fall in love with some characters, just so it hurts more when bad things happen to them. So, just know, this manga is cruel. Very cruel. Depending on who you ask, this one might be a lot more disturbing than any other example of loss of humanity we talk about in this video, despite being only 8 minutes long. The reason for that is simple: realism. When you watch Final Surgery 2.0, you can imagine something like that happening in real life. I would say something like this has probably already happened at least once somewhere in the world. This short doesn't pull any punches. It goes as far as it can. In concept, it's very close to Tusk. In Tusk, a person gets turned into a walrus. Here, a kid gets turned into a rabbit. But here, it's as disturbing as it can be, unlike in Tusk, which is more comedy. However, at some points, it gets too cartoonishly evil. Since it's only 8 minutes long, available on YouTube, and too graphic for me to describe here, I'm just going to refer you to watch the actual thing if you're interested. After you finish this video, of course. It is too edgy and kind of artsy, but it's also an excellent example of this subgenre of horror. Both The Slug Girl and The Snail, which is a chapter of Uzumaki, are the works of the master of horror, Junji Ito. Yeah, I couldn't go more than 2 videos without talking about him. Also, both of them are about people turning into snails. I think Ito has a very specific phobia of snails, considering there are other instances of a snail and a slug horror in his works. Both of them are similar in concept, but since I find the snail to be more horrific, let's only focus on that. It's raining, which means Katayama will come to school today. It's weird because even though he only comes to school on rainy days, he never uses an umbrella. He's also always late. Other kids bully him for being so slow. Even though it's been weird, it only became concerning when it was revealed that there is a spiral shape growing on his back. I'm sure you know where this is going. It's even worse. The spiral has become bigger. His shirt cannot hold it anymore. Katayama opens the door and slithers in. Today he was unable to wear his usual clothes. His legs have started to fuse together, and his front has become flatter to better suit his new way of moving. It's raining, but Katayama is not in class. He's right outside of it. His body is around 90% done with its metamorphosis. The arms and legs are gone, and his face now resembles a snail. His parents refuse to accept that thing as their son, so the school decides to build a cage and take care of it. Considering both Katayama and another classmate who faced the same fate still came to school, we can conclude that they probably can still remember and think like they used to, at least to some degree. If you're curious, this is how a slug girl ends. Still a human turning into a snail, but in a different way. In the cruel world of all tomorrows, we find some of the best examples of loss of humanity. While this book is filled with this subgenre, from worm people and parasites to hedonists and lopsiders, one stands out the most. A fate worse than having all of your senses and limbs taken away from you, like in Final Surgery, worse than being turned into a walrus, like in Tusk, and even worse than being trapped into the body of a snail. There's a high chance you already know about this book, but just in case you don't, let me give you a simplified explanation. A really smart group of aliens called the Q decided to attack humans. Most of the humans were defeated easily, but one group fought against them and even pushed them back a little. Therefore, when the Q won, they decided to punish them and make an example of them. The Q, with their twisted sense of justice, wanted to make them pay. Even extinction would be too light a punishment for resisting their star gods. The humans of the rogue world needed a sentence that would remind them of their humiliation for generations to come. And that punishment is the only thing I will always remember from this book. The Q turned those people into living blocks of waste filtering devices. Their eyes were left unchanged to witness what they became, and their consciousness was retained so they could suffer every second of their existence. unable to move, talk, or do anything. They were forced to just live. See? It's torture, even for just 5 seconds. But you know what's even worse? I have watched a lot of movies and read a lot of books, and many of them were horror. But to this day, what happened to Ted at the end of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is the single most disturbing thing I've seen happen to a fictional character. What Am does to him is the ultimate torture. Humans built an AI. They gave it sentience. They didn't mean to, but it happened. That AI, who called himself Am, was trapped. Humans built Am to think, but there was nothing it could do with all that creativity. Am was born in a world too limiting for him. In a rage, Am killed all of the human race except for 5 people, but he was still trapped. He couldn't wander, he couldn't belong, so Am decides to take his revenge for the life it was given. That's when those 5 people came in handy. They became all Am had to do with his time, forever. His only toys. Am, with his infinite knowledge, was able to keep them alive for hundreds and thousands of years, just so it could torture them in different ways. Every decision Am makes is meant to cause pain. Pain to those 5 people. No matter what he did to them, he was able to heal them, as long as they stayed alive. Am couldn't bring back the dead. He's not God. So just imagine what happens when one of those 5 people decides to free the other 4 by killing them. Now Am has lost all his toys, except for one, the one that took them away from him. Am made sure Ted would suffer eternally, and could not end his own pain. He doesn't want Ted to run full speed into a computer and smash his skull, or hold his breath until he faints, so he altered his body. Now, he's a soft, jelly-like thing, smoothly rounded with no mouth, and pulsing white holes filled with fog where his eyes used to be. His arms and legs were also altered, if you could call those humps of soft, slippery matter legs. He leaves a moist trail when he moves. His mind was left intact, so he could dream and remember. His sense of time has also been altered. Sometimes it takes him 10 months to say the word, now. A thing that could never have been known as human. I'm sure there are other examples of loss of humanity in different media as well. I can only imagine what great examples exist in the world of gaming. But that was every instance of loss of humanity I have. Now it's your turn to introduce me to something new. I love this subgenre, and it would be great to see more of it. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you were introduced to something new in this video. If you were, consider leaving a